Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today is day 2 of my 2020 Valentine card series. I'll be making 2 cards out of one background. One of them is a shaker card. So I will be starting out using some Cougar bright white 110 pound cardstock and this background stamp by Spellbinders, Nothing But Love. I will be using some Distress Oxide inks to do an emboss resist technique. So here I have grabbed my stamp positioning tool and I am pulling out those inserts to make it the right thickness for this cling stamp. I go ahead and place that down and then add some temporary adhesive on the back of that piece of cardstock, and I will lay that on my background stamp and then flip my stamping tool over on it. It looks crooked, but I did have it all lined up straight. I just didn't worry about straightening it in my stamp positioning tool. I will be using my antistatic powder bag on that piece of cardstock and then some Versamark ink to stamp that down. So then I will be using some Hero Arts white embossing powder to cover the entire background that I just stamped with it so that I can heat emboss all of it. I will be using my Wagner heat gun to go ahead and melt all of that. And then I will be using my Distress Oxide inks to place down some color and do a blend of the 4 colors that I previously showed. I'm using these blending tools because I wanted a heavy amount of ink rather than a light amount. So that first color is Abandoned Coral, and then I use Wilted Violet next. And then after that I will be using the peacock feathers and then Cracked Pistachio at the very bottom. So now I go ahead and blend that green up into the blue and then go back with the blue, and the same thing with all the others. I go ahead and blend backwards to get a better blend on all of them. I love how this combination of colors turned out. I wasn't quite sure once I got them all on there that first time, but after I went through and blended them that second time, then I really liked how they worked together. So when I have finished blending all of those together, I use a paper towel and I wipe off any excess ink that might be sitting on top of that embossing powder. And then I'm using my tonic guillotine paper trimmer to trim that down on both sides down to a 3 3/4 by 5.5 inch panel. I'm using this Nesting Hearts die set by Firefly, and I'll be using the largest heart die from that to die cut from the center of that panel for my shaker window. I'm using some Judikins window plastic for the back of that, and I will be using 1/4 inch score tape on the back of that panel to make sure that that's held down strongly. And I will use some scissors to trim off the excess of that acetate, and then some bertech foam tape I have folded over and then cut in half to make it thick enough for the sequins to move around. And then I am trying to decide which sequins I want in there, so I have decided on 4 different mixes that I have. So I will just place a pinch of each of those in that window. And when I am happy with the amount of sequins that are in there, I use a scrap piece of cardstock and place that on the back of the window. You can see those move around in there. I will then use some more score tape on the back of that cardstock panel so that it will have enough adhesive to be adhered flat onto my card base. And it is a top folding note card with that same cardstock. I am using a piece of silver glitter cardstock that has the Stick It double-sided adhesive on the back of it, and this word Die With Love from Leechby. So I go ahead and place that over top of my window and use my Teflon bone folder to press that down, make sure that it's adhered well onto that piece of acetate. And here's that finished card. I love how that one turned out. I think the sequins matched those ink colors very well. And then for the second card, I will be using that same Cougar cardstock to score it 5.5 inches for another top folding note card. And I will be using the heart from that previous die cut panel as the main focal point on this card. I'm using some iced Spruce Distress Oxide ink. I started using this blending tool, but I was not getting a very smooth blend. I'm not very good with these tools, so I wasn't getting a smooth blend and it wasn't working, so I switched over to a blender brush to try to smooth and even out those edges a little bit more. When I am fairly happy with the way that that looks on the outside, then I use some bertech foam tape and adhere that on the back of this heart to give it a little bit of dimension. It's going to be a very simple card. So I remove the release paper off of that tape and then adhere that onto the card base over top of that ink blended spot. Trying to just line that up and make sure that it's straight. When I'm happy with that placement, I go ahead and press it down. I'm then using, a sentiment from that Lawn Fawn Mom and Me stamp set, the I Love You, again from that. I will be stamping that in iced Spruce Distress Oxide ink using my stamp positioning tool. And then I will trim that down with my guillotine paper trimmer into a thin strip and use my T-square ruler to make sure that that's lined up straight on that heart. I will be using some clear sequins and my wax pencil and some Distress Collage Medium matte finish adhesive to adhere those down. And here is this finished card. I love how both of these turned out. They are so much fun. I love shaker cards. They're just so fun to mess around with. Give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you soon for day 3 of my 2020 Valentine card series. Thank you so much for watching.